What do you think of when you think of Shaytan? This is a very important question because many of us think that Shaytan's greatest weapon is temptation or making us fall into sin. Now, although those are pretty big weapons of Shaytan, the reality is that Shaytan's greatest weapon is instilling enmity, hatred, and animosity between us. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَن يُوقِعَ بَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ. Satan only wants to cause between you animosity and hatred. The verse continues and says, through intoxicants and gambling, and to avert you from the remembrance of Allah and from prayer, so will you not desist. However, in Surah Al-Isra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, tell my believing servants to say only what is best. Satan certainly seeks to sow discord among them. Satan is indeed a sworn enemy to humankind. In another translation, Satan is ever to mankind a clear enemy. Now, Allah is letting us know that Shaytan is a clear enemy to us, mankind, and is a sworn enemy, right? And he's letting us know the severity of Shaytan's plots and his weapons. So it's something far greater than Shaytan whispering to us to go commit sins, small sins here and there. There's something more fundamental about us being disunited, about Shaytan sowing discord between us, right? Creating this level of enmity, hatred, and animosity and division. Now, the reason I bring this up is because we're an ummah of 2 billion people. And I want us to reflect openly and honestly about the state of our ummah today, where we currently have a state of affairs where, we're being fought on multiple fronts. We have the United States and Israel waging wars on multiple countries in our region, multiple Muslim countries at the same time, where you have the genocide that's been taking place in Gaza and is still taking place, the ethnic cleansing that's taking place there, the siege on the Gaza Strip. And then you have this model being replicated in Lebanon, in the south, where, it's being completely carpet bombed and the population is being ethnically cleansed from the south and pushed northwards. And you have, territory being taken from Lebanon. You have territory being taken from Syria. You have what's happening in Iran right now with the US and Israel bombing Iran incessantly. And then obviously what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz, what was happening in Yemen, and so on and so forth. And then you have, of course, what's happening in Sudan and the fact that we have our own countries, Muslim countries, the Gulf states that are funding what's happening in Sudan, right? The UAE is the biggest culprit here. And so, while all of this is happening, where we have complicity from our own countries, where we have, the Western states that are actively conspiring against us, against Islam, against the Muslim nation, the Ummah, what are we busy doing? What are we spending our time on? Are we organizing? Are we coming together? Are we, trying to take action to try and stop these atrocities that are taking place against our people? Or are we busy debating one another? Are we busy having conversations and debates that have been taking place for 1,400 years since the time of the Prophet ﷺ? Not to discount the importance of some of these conversations, but is this really the time for us to be busy fighting one another, to be pointing fingers back and forth nonstop, to be playing the sectarian card and sowing all of these differences between sects at a time where all of us are getting attacked, where all of us are getting bombed, where all of us are getting killed? Does this make any sense? And so we see this happening over and over and over again, and it seems like we are trapped. Almost like this is exactly what the US and Israel wants. They want for us to be stuck fighting one another while they continue profiting off of our backs, while they keep taking more and more of our land, more and more of our territory. There's a verse that is also very interesting. It's in Surah Al-A'raf, and there's a passage where there's a conversation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Shaytan. And in one of the verses, Shaytan says, قال فبما أغويتني لأقعدن لهم صراطك المستقيم. He said, for leaving me to stray, I will lie in ambush for them on your straight path. Now, this is interesting. Them as in, mankind, but on your straight path as in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not the path of disobedience, not the path of sin. But Shaytan will be waiting for us on the straight path. As in, he will go after the believers, the people that already believe, that have faith in Allah, that are trying. That are trying to be sincere or claim to be trying and trying to be sincere. Now, why is this important and why do I bring this up? Because we have currently a state of affairs where we have scholars state-backed scholars, religious scholars, that are putting all of their energy and time into pacifying the deen, pacifying our understanding of Islam, bringing it down to such a lowly state where we are incapable of taking action. And you see these scholars, these religious scholars, essentially backing the interests of their state, as opposed to serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and implementing the Sharia of Allah and getting us to do what Allah commands us to do in helping and supporting our oppressed brothers and sisters. Now, this is very, very problematic. And this is exactly a part of this strategy, a part of this playbook, right? Where you'll have scholars that will tell us Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold us to account for whether or not we wiped ourselves clean, but He won't ask us about Palestine or Sudan or Syria or Lebanon or Iran or any other country or any other oppressed people, only about what we have done for ourselves and whether or not we cleaned our lower areas. Do you understand? Like, it's not that Allah will not ask us about these things, but it's that the expectation is for us to only worry about these things and to forget everything else. What actually impacts our community, what actually, life or death situation to millions of people. That's not our concern. Let the people who do the politics. You stay out of it. It's almost exactly what they're telling us. And so this is a part of this problem. And then you have another issue where you have, people who, for example, might have started practicing and really becoming religious not that long ago, that begin to, start pointing fingers left and right and saying every other group other than their own group is invalid and incorrect. And we have this bit of excitement where, your ego kicks in and you want to be proven right and prove everybody else wrong. And we get stuck in all of these incessant debates about, which group is right and which group is wrong. We get stuck in these echo chambers, especially online, where you see all of these conversations and these debates that take place on issues that are truly, in the grand scheme of things, insignificant. And again, this is exactly what Shaytan wants from us. A few other examples that I'll give very quickly is, the scholars or the people in general that say, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not grant success to the resistance fighters, the mujahideen in Gaza, because they put music in their videos where they're sacrificing every single thing they have, their body, their wealth, just everything in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're doing everything to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you're telling me that Allah will not grant them success because of this. As if Allah operates on such a lowly plane. This is something that is truly absurd, truly absurd. And there are so many examples like this. But the point here is that we truly have a problem as an ummah. And this is something that we need to all come together, look inward, reflect openly and honestly, and understand that we need to do better, that we truly do need to do better, given the circumstances, given what we are going through and what is being done to us. And so there is a very, very intentional plot to strip the essence of Islam away from the deen, to strip the essence of the deen away from it, to give us this very ritualistic, mechanical, individualistic version of Islam that doesn't teach us to care about our community, that doesn't teach us to care about justice and fighting oppression and supporting one another. This is what Islam is about. Serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what Islam is about. Who else will we seek victory from other than from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who else can support us other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost? Nobody. There's nobody that can support us and that can grant us victory apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is very important. This is what we need to keep in mind at all times.
واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا إخوانا